Hello, everybody. Welcome to Full Spectrum Survival and one of the first live shows that we have put on in most of 2018. Today, we have two special guests. We have Patrick with Breakaway Homestead, and we have Jason over at Big Bear Homestead. We're here to discuss current events, ongoing conflicts in the world, and some of the important steps that you and I need to take to get ready for the future of tomorrow. Jason and Patrick, how are you?
Good.
So I want to talk today about some of the current events that we have going on, and everybody in chat, if you have something that you want to discuss or some discussion about any one of these topics, please throw them out there. Some of them are more likely, of course, to affect us on an individual level than others. The first thing is the UN Security Council and their holding of the meeting on Israeli violence. So everybody knows that the US just opened the embassy over in Jerusalem, and that has caused quite a sectarian divide within that region. Sectarian violence is something that is increasing all over the world. You might say it's not increasing in the West to the degree that we see in other areas of the world, at least not in North America, but we are seeing it. It doesn't get talked about on the news a lot because mainstream media doesn't want to inflame the attention here. But every day, if you look through the news feeds, you'll see here in America, here in the US, over in Canada, over in Europe, sectarian violence. That is people acting out violently against people of opposing faiths. A lot of what we see right now is anti-Muslim and anti-Jewish opposition, but that's just here. If you go to other areas of the world, you go to Asia, there's a lot of anti-Christian opposition. A lot of violence takes place there every day. So I have it on my personal radar that this is one of the conflicts that is going to continue over the next decade. And it's something that we each are going to have to experience and handle and know how to adjust our lifestyles to it. So the United Nations Security Council held an emergency meeting to discuss the situation along the border in the besieged Gaza Strip and Israel. Other news around the world, anti-Israeli protests held against what is being called internationally a massacre that took place in Gaza. As soon as people started showing a propensity to violence, the Israeli military opened fire on them. And that is something that has the potential to escalate, not just there, but escalate all around the world. As soon as a governing power shows that it can't sustain protests or it can't sustain violence without subjecting those people to basically a firing squad, you have an escalation that can quickly get out of control. Look at what happened in Egypt. Look at what happened in Syria. As soon as the bullets start flying, you sort of cross this line in the sand where your opposition party, your protesters say, hey, if you're going to shoot us, we're going to shoot you. And that's something that we see happening with unfortunate frequency. Hey, everybody in the chat room, we're glad to have you today. If you're just getting in, we have Jason over at Big Bear Homestead, Patrick over at Breakaway Homestead. We're here to talk about current events, conflict escalation, gardening, things that we need to do to prepare, and we have a great show, so welcome. The U.S. is monitoring Iranian forces in the Persian Gulf. With the U.S. pulling out of the Iranian nuclear deal, it has set into motion a cascading series of events that could really unravel the U.S. as one of the superpowers of the world. Not just economically, because there's certain stopgap measures put into place there, but as a military leader. Something that we've warned about on the channel for years, and that's that the USD is going to one day not be the staple of the world, and the US military is not going to be the big bad switch that everybody's scared of. We've got geomagnetic storms possible, 60% chance of G1 class geomagnetic storms happening on the 17th, so watch out for that. Chinese scientists, they found 2 MCR genes on the same plasmid for a colicin-resistant gene. Basically a bacteria that is capable of sharing genetic information with other bacteria types. And they're seeing a mutation that take place right now that could lead to a very dangerous future. 40 killed in Indian dust storms. And the prime today, for years we have talked about in our community, and a lot of religious organizations have said when they start to put the chip in your arm, that's when the S starts to hit the fan. So around 3,000 people in Sweden have already gotten the microchips planted into their hands. 3,000 people as part of this pilot. Now we see these extravagant news articles here in the U.S. where somebody who's really just a tattoo artist installs a little dermal pill into their arm, and they think they're all the rage and they think they're cool. No, this is actually the chips being implanted into people's hands. That is, let's see what it does. Train tickets, identification,
Money.
billing. Yep, money. So this is legit. This is what is happening. Please go look it up. Do your research. This was 3,000 at the time. This was on the 12th, I believe. So just 3 days ago. And so imagine how many more people will just sign right up to have the chip put in their hand. Those are most of the conflicts and current events that I wanted to talk about today. Guys, do you have anything, Jason or Patrick, on those conflicts? I'm going to go read some of the chat and see if anybody brought up anything in there.
Go ahead, Patrick.
Along the lines with the chip, a lot of people are dreading the day that there's an EMP attack or there's a solar flare, and so some people, with this technology going on, are looking forward to the day that it actually happens. People are actually looking forward to a Carrington event that's going to make all the electronics disappear, so we can start from scratch and actually do it right.
Mm-hmm. On the lines of the EMP and the solar flares, I read an article today that it stated that the I believe it was the Russians are contemplating, because they've been doing a lot of the cyber warfare hacking stuff, and that they claimed, or that the article claimed, that Russia will consider it an act of cyber warfare to do a high electromagnetic pulse. I think he said it was an E1 pulse over the United States, and if that does happen within the first year, 9 out of 10 Americans will be dead.
Yes, I mean, the Russian-American conflict, that is, for anybody who doesn't see that as a large threat, that's sort of a willful ignorance there. Sure, we have two super powerful militaries. Sure, we have two actual superpowers, two nuclear militaries, but they are in direct opposition. And the one thing that holds this whole boat together is the economy. Mm-hmm. Because all these people care about is getting rich and getting richer and becoming more powerful. And power in today's world only comes with money. So as soon as we see the economy go from this downward near plateau where it's at today, and it starts to take dives, that's when we'll see war, because that's when these countries will say, in order to have that power, I need to have your stuff. And they're going to go for it. So that is a very dangerous thing.
And one of the things that the article I was reading, and then I listened to it was on Off the Grid News. And then it went into their radio show, and the one guy that was talking, their guest, I can't pronounce his name, so I'm not even going to try.
Okay.
He made a comment that because we could fix our electrical grid here, and it would cost us the same amount of money that we sent to Pakistan last year for aid.
Right.
But it's not going to happen because, and this is where I've always said, we are no longer we the people here.
Right.
It is we the corporation.
That's right.
This is something that I didn't know. All electrical companies, whether you're Hart EMC here where I am, or Duke Energy, Georgia Power, whatever, they're all part of basically this for lack of a better term, like a co-op or a power
conglomerate, right?
Yeah, and that is what runs the power companies, and they say yay or nay to to what's going to happen. And it took they finally got one thing for them to fix one thing, and that took 10 years, and it was a very minor thing.
Yeah, right.
So getting them to fix something like this that is it would be a large project, but it could be done. It may take 20 or 30 years, and by then it'll be too late.
Yeah, right.
It's about money. You know, we had this storm here not too long ago in February, end of January, beginning of February.
That's what it was.
Power went out, and everybody lost power, and everybody's bill literally tripled the next bill cycle. They're like, and they send us a message going, "Hey, your next bill is going to be double. Your next bill is going to be triple," and there was no reason behind it. And so we think we have control over this situation. We have no choice but to pay that bill, or we lose power.
That's right. And it really is. I mean, that's another part of that staple that holds it together is the ability to turn on the lights. And that all follows the same sort of, mudslide. Sorry. That all follows the same mudslide that goes downhill. And the thing is, we have these little hiccups now. You have Venezuela, who has a current economic crisis ongoing that is sending thousands of people, hundreds of thousands, and 10,000 by the day across the border into neighboring countries. You have violence in Malaysia. You have the Syrian civil war. And that is really a contentious topic of its own, because you have Syria at the center. And for anyone who doesn't know, in not so recent history, Syria was a very first world westernized country. It was a very nice country, very friendly to America, very friendly, had a large Christian base, just a really a great country. And then as soon as its leader stopped playing by the rules, it was conflict from that point on. And so now you've got these two major countries, the United States and Russia, fighting over just that control. And we could pick apart what little things they could each gain from owning that part of the world, but it's just about that control and keeping other countries in line. But if one thing goes sour there, like the Israeli-Iran conflict over Syria, if things continue to go sour there, we will see one of these other nations that the U.S. has said, we have your back and we are an allied protector. We will see one of these nations take an action that the U.S. will have to pick up the pieces, and then that sends the world possibly into war. So, I mean, there's just so many things. What's that?
World War III is coming.
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It is just one. It is just one oops waiting
away. That's right. And that brings me.
It's one private with a gun, scared to death, waiting to happen. That's what it is.
Sure. Yeah.
One private with a rifle who's scared to death, and he gets spooked by a field rat and turns around to shoot.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And, that brings me to one of my major things that I wanted to bring to the table tonight, and that's conflict resolution and preparing for conflict as our world stands today, and how that shift is going to take place during a medium or a long duration emergency. So if a conflict happens today, this could be with somebody, road rage down the street. This could be with a neighbor you're fighting with. This could be with a family member who you don't have any similar views with. If conflict happens today, we have rules that we have to play by. If you are escalating toward violence, you are, at least in the Western world, at least in the United States, able to use that escalation of violence to overwhelm it with your own, to keep you and your family safe. Now, if you have to shoot somebody, you're still spending time in jail. You're still in the court system. Your life is going to be screwed up. But you have the ability to do it. And this ability sort of keeps both parties of a conflict in check, because they know this crazy sucker might have a gun. He might kill me. And that's also why people don't directly confront the police in large. That's why criminal elements don't directly confront the police in large, because they know, hey, I'm going to get shot. And no amount of protest because of my race or religious creed is going to matter, because if I run at that cop with a knife, he's going to shoot me. So as we change from that stability, our mindset also is going to have to change in conflict resolution. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
I think it's more of a morph than a change. It's got a morph.
Yeah.
That morph. Patrick.
Go ahead.
What do you mean by morph?
What do you mean by morph? He said we're going to be going into these changes. It's not. So he gave the example that a guy's going to go for a gun, a guy is going to go for a cop with a gun. So basically, our views are not. They're not changing. They're morphing into something different. So there's more cop killings these days because they're not. They're resisting people, because last year there were all those cop killings. People just walk up to a cop, shoot him in the head. The cops are not going to resist because they're the authority. Right. So nowadays, anything, if you put your hand in your pocket at the wrong time in front of a cop, he will shoot you.
Yeah. Right. And so let's just take kind of a thought scenario. As we continue to experience economic decline, as you see the criminal element sort of rise up while your rights go down, and that is what's happening. The criminal element is becoming more powerful and you're becoming less powerful. That's the gun grab move. That's London's anti-knife. I mean, for the London mayor to stand up and say there is no reason anybody should be caught on the streets with a knife is about the most authoritarian, ridiculous personal view of tyranny that I've seen in a Western country. And so as our rights go down and the criminal element becomes more powerful, if the structure of the world stays the same and we still live in a society of you better call the cops if something happens, you're going to have to become more aware, more vigilant, and be able to step in front of that confrontation before it affects your family. Mm-hmm. As we get worse and it becomes less of a reliance on armed historians, then you are going to have to consider whether you're going to become the aggressor first. And you're going to jump on that altercation first. And you're not going to be at the sour end of the conflict, no matter what transpires. And that's something that you go ahead.
Sorry, I think there's some point in our life when we're going to have to face that, no matter what, when we will have to face that decision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you look at other countries where there is less of a reliance on armed authority. That is just the fact of life. Look at Africa, where you or I, no matter our color, no matter our skin color, if we were black or we were white or whatever, we walked into a region of Africa, they have a different idea of shoot somebody and put them on the ground rather than what we do here. So you might think that you can, puff your chest up and go call out some guy, but they just kill you.
Yeah.
And, that's just the fact of life. And we're not very accustomed to that here, where we live in a country right now where there's lots of chest puffing and lots of I'm a bigger man and talk. But we're going to reach a point, like Patrick said, where that talk needs to stop. And you see somebody even getting to that point where the propensity for violence begins to escalate, you have to overwhelm them right away.
Yep.
And are you prepared to do it as an individual? Do you have the firearm, the weapon of choice? Do you have the personal backup? Do you have people around you that have your back if it's not just one person? Those are things you got to think about. What are your thoughts on that, Jason?
Well, I mean, we're heading back towards, and I don't want to say the Wild West, but that's basically the mindset that we're going to. And you're going to have to make the decision: are you going to remain a law-abiding citizen, or are you going to be a part of the criminal element? Mm-hmm. What I mean by that, are you going to give up your firearm? When they started to request everybody to turn them in, Are you going to be the guy that obeys the law, or are you going to be the guy that puts the rubber over the barrel and buries it out somewhere in the yard when they come to do the checks, or hide a pistol in a wall, or and that they're not taking mine. I'll become a criminal.
Well, this Patrick can attest to this. He's one of our, and we're very thankful for him. He's one of our members on Patreon. We wanted to discuss a person's ability to cache their weapons, but you can't really do that while also discussing gun rights. That's not something that you want to put right next to each other, because then you become part of the problem. But caching your weapons, and this is something that we talked about on this last month's send out, is something that we should each consider doing. If you haven't thought about caching your weapons, think about doing it. Not because they're illegal, just because it's something that you might want to do. And so where would you cache them? Of course, you don't want to cross someone else's property to do it, but is your only choice to put them in somewhere that no one else will find them? Are you going to cache your ammunition anywhere near it? Any cached weapon is not an easy access weapon. It's something that you're going to have to get there, and you're going to have to uncover, hopefully after years of dirt and years of overgrowth, but more likely than not, just after a couple of months, you will have to clean it up and put it back together. Now, both of these gentlemen have been in the military. They've dealt with grease. A lot of people haven't dealt with a greasy weapon before and don't have any idea what is good and what is bad about it. Could you guys give somebody who maybe has never dealt with picking a weapon just out of grease and sludge, and what they should be prepared for? What should they have on hand to clean it up and make it a working firearm?
I'm going to let Jason take that one before I say it, but before he does, I want to say that any weapon that you have is better in pieces, no matter where you cache it.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
If you can put it in parts, then they can't declare it an actual weapon. They're pieces of a weapon. That's
Smart.
just my tidbit.
Yep. So, Jason, what are your thoughts on degreasing and how a person, what should they have on hand to get ready to get messy?
Well, it really depends on, the first thing is going to depend on what weapon they're hiding.
Right.
You would need something along the lines of lots of rags, lubricant, a toothbrush to help get any gook and grime out of any of your moving parts.
Mm-hmm. How about a cleaning kit? Would you suggest somebody cache a cleaning kit with it so they have a
cleaning kit in there to be able to punch the bore? They make great. They even got little tiny cans now of this stuff that I got a hold of an old pistol one time, an old 22 that was my grandfather's, and when he was getting up there with dementia, he must have left it outside or something. It had some rust and stuff on it. Well, they got these they got the little cans, and I bought one, and it worked great to get the rust and stuff off. But you want that weapon to be, you want all the moving parts to be able to move and slide with ease. So any type of, like the Remington oils,
Right.
Any of those that come in the little cans, they got them in the little bottles that you can just pour it in there. Anything like that, because I don't, right off the top of my head, I don't know what the life expectancy of an aerosol can is, but you might want to get the little bottles of the oils. Q-tips is a must.
Steve over in the chat room said bore snakes, maybe possibly rather than a pole kit to go through the bore.
Yeah,
Bore snakes are great.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, some weapons also have cleaning tubes inserted into the weapons. So some weapons have the long poles that go with it. It's already on the weapon, so you already have that.
Yeah, you can put it. You can take the butt end of a rifle and bore it out and get you a little cleaning kit like the old M16 A2s used to have.
Right.
Slide it in the butt with a flip lock lid, and then you got your cleaning kit right in there with it. So if I was going to store my weapon, I would definitely take a non-lubricated condom, put it over the business end of the barrel,
right,
band it down. Food saver bags are great. Those
Smart.
are phenomenal.
Mhm.
You put a whole rifle in one of those bad boys, vacuum seal it, bury it, and you're good to go. As long as nothing punctures that bag, like I would probably dig a trench, lay some wood down, put my rifle on top of the wood, then put another chunk of wood on top of my rifle, cover it with dirt inside that food saver bag. Try to stop anything from puncturing that bag.
Go ahead.
Then you just, when you need it, you dig it up, cut that bag, air comes back in the bag, you pull your rifle out, and it should be good to go.
I was reading the chat. Did you say also put in oxygen absorbers inside there?
No, I wouldn't put any oxygen absorbers in there, but I mean,
It'll keep it from rusting, but it won't do anything else other than that.
Yeah,
right.
You may get a rust on it, but that's about it.
Deplorable NYC asked, in an emergency, would 3-in-1 oil be usable if you didn't have access to gun oil? Yeah, I mean, any kind of oil is better than no oil.
Any kind of lubricant. I mean, you could, if you, not trying to be funny or gross, but I mean, if all you had was KY, you could use that too. Anything that's gonna. It's no a firearm when you're thinking about it. It's not really much different than a combustible engine. Those parts are sliding metal on metal, and the whole purpose of the oil that you got in there is to make it smooth, so it doesn't heat up too bad. This is to lubricate that friction.
Right.
Moving.
Finger Lakes Prepper posted an SMS alert where the USGS raised the volcanic alert in Hawaii to red, indicating major volcanic eruption imminent with hazards on both the air and the ground. That's something that we didn't talk about as a current event. You have, from the research that we have done, from some of the research that the USGS even doesn't like to publicize, but is out there. If you go to individual volcanologists, individual seismologists, the research that they have shown is that basically the Earth is continuing to create pressure. Has to come out somewhere. That's why somebody mentioned earlier, if Yellowstone stopped spitting out the geysers, that's when you've got to worry. What we're seeing now with Hawaii is that we have a pressure release, and this is going to either happen for over so much time that it equalizes, or you're going to see a growth of pressure until a final explosion. And it might not even be at that site. Might be somewhere nearby, might be at a lava channel, somewhere nearby in the ocean. It is going to equalize that pressure at some point. Talk about a potential regional disaster. Hawaii goes, or that pressure goes somewhere else along the plate. Imagine the series of events that we might be looking at if that pressure builds. I mean, look at Fukushima. When Fukushima rang, they could see that ring on the plates all across the world. It is all connected. So if Hawaii doesn't go, and instead a fault line over the U.S. goes, or another one in the Pacific, that's what we've got to look out for. That's when you're talking about tsunami, talking about potential huge loss of life. Have you guys followed any of that?
Well, I did. I have a subscriber that lives over there. I met her at the Homesteaders of America conference last year. She came over from Doug and Stacy's channel. And so we contacted her and make sure that they were okay and everything. And she was like, yeah, I'm on the Big Island, and that's about 50 miles away from us, blah, blah, blah. And but my next question is after it erupted, and you've seen all of the stuff on Facebook and everything where the lava ate that Mustang, and everything. But how is the air quality over there now?
Oh, it's dangerous. Yeah, anytime you have an eruption, you have asthmatics need to take specific care. You have gases that are released into the air. If I was in Hawaii, I'd be walking around with at least an N95 mask ready to put on at the first sign of anything, even if I'm not near the site.
Well, they're not even they're talking that they're no good anymore because the air quality is getting so bad. There's so much gases in the air. It's so noxious that it's making people pass out. So even, I mean, that's for particulates, which you're going to want like a heavier type. a gas mask, a military style, something that's going to pull out those fumes.
That's right. Yeah, if you're where the actual gases are, you need to be exchanging your air at some point because you don't want to take any of it in. I mean, you might not see the effects right away, or you might be the type of person who has a susceptibility to it and it knocks you out of the spot. Imagine trying to run because things are going on and you just knock out, you're fainted. Yeah. That would suck.
That would suck.
Yeah. Now let me ask this: how long does all of that ash and stuff stay up there in the atmosphere? Are they going to have a difference in climate for a little while? Because is it going to be blocking out the sun, kind of like how with a nuclear winter happens?
I think that would affect world climate.
Yeah, it depends, I guess, on how long and how drawn out the effect is. If it were to stop today, you wouldn't see that much difference. You'd have particulates in the air and probably some gas fallout when it rains and things over there. But if this goes on for a while, or if it builds in intensity, you have the potential to look at a regional change, not just in climate, but in quality and and personal danger.
I'm reading here that volcanic ash clouds, if they reach the stratosphere, can last and stay in the atmosphere for up to 3 to 4 years. That's crazy.
That's a long time. Yeah, that's a long time to be thinking about it.
So that can change the whole climate.
The whole world.
Mostly just, wouldn't it also be isolated over there, though, mostly?
I think it moves across once it gets to the stratosphere.
And it head towards the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And that could change everybody's growing season.
Oh yeah.
Not that they're changing already. Enough of it, it could literally block out a lot of the sun, could it not?
That's kind of a great segue into what we can start to do now to prepare for these things. Jason and Patrick, I know you guys were going to talk about gardening, talk about personal preparation. Who wants to take it first on? First of all, what would you do if you had less access to the sun? How would you continue to garden? Or if you had the real danger of fallout on your plants from a volcanic eruption, what would you do? And then let's segue that into what you brought to the table today.
Well, in my case, I have a very large garden. If there was volcanic ash getting ready to start to come down, and I don't know much about, is that stuff still hot when it comes back down out of the ground, or
not unless you're nearby?
Yeah. So I would probably try to get out there and get my garden covered with some type of a cover, whether it's plastic or what, that could handle it. And then once it's gone, once it's all fallen or it's moved on, definitely go out there and get it off as soon as I can and wash everything off.
So to give people kind of an idea in the thought exercise, let's say you had enough money or you had enough time to get to the store and the store had all the parts that you need. What do you, just off the top of your head right now, what would you go buy to get that covered in the quickest way possible with the least help?
I would have to buy about 4 rolls of that, the painter's plastic, and big pumpkin rolls that you got.
Like the 3 mil or the 6 mil.
Yeah, and I would probably purchase tent stakes or sod staples.
Now, would that keep the plastic high enough so that it didn't weigh down your plants if you had to leave it on for 2 days?
Well, the nice thing about how my garden is a lot of my stuff I put on trellises because I like to grow vertically as well. And so my trellises, and I have them, and one of the reasons why that I have them spaced out the way that I do is for it to be, if I had to throw plastic or something, like if we all of a sudden, a chemical truck or something like that, there's something got in the air that stands the possibility of getting on my stuff. Right. I can throw plastic out across the top of these trellises and it will come down kind of like a tent effect.
Okay.
And then I can put the tent staples or side staples or tent stakes or whatever and stake it down that way. And then the most important thing after that is after I remove that plastic, just water them, spray them down in case anything did seep through the plastic. I can wash it off of the plant. And And then I would really monitor my plants heavily. If I started to see any discoloration in leaves, or just them not growing or acting the way that they should, I'll probably yank them.
Well, I think that just added some objects to a lot of our list. If you don't have enough plastic on hand, sure, we might each have enough to border up the windows. We might each have enough to set up a small quarantine zone. But do you have enough to lay over your garden? Because once you use it, if it has some sort of chemical, like Jason said, or ash fallout on it, ash you could of course wash away. Chemical you wouldn't want to. Do you have enough on hand to cover your whole garden? If not, maybe that's something you want to think about for your next prep budget.
Yeah. Let's say Yellowstone were to go up today. First place I'd be heading to is Harbor Freight, and I'd be getting myself a cheap greenhouse, one of those large greenhouses. They're not too expensive, but you know how ash is blocking UV rays. That's what causes plants to grow. And so what you're doing is it's taking away the greenhouse effect. So if you create your own environment with its own greenhouse effect, those UV rays that still make it through will actually make it better inside that greenhouse, in my opinion.
Yeah, you're right.
That's what I would be doing.
And if you didn't have access to it, and if you had like the 3 mil plastic, you could maybe make something yourself. If you have long PVC or something, you could bow over your garden, something like that.
Yeah. Tree limbs, something to raise it up and hold it up. You can. That's one of the things about the human mind. When your back's against the wall, you can be creative and come up with stuff. I mean, you got half a brain.
Yeah.
You'll be able to sit back, problem solving skills, especially if you're a homesteader. You're already ahead of the game if you're a homesteader, because our problem solving skills level is through the roof. I mean,
most of us.
Yeah. I think it's for simplicity.
Because we can't afford to go out and buy all kinds of stuff. We got to look back and go, okay, wait a minute. I'm going to take that cedarwood tree over there and I'm going to cut that big hunk of limb off. I'm going to make like 4 posts.
Right.
Yeah, and one thing we should make clear is there is no lone wolf in this situation. You can't rely on other people. You only come up with so many ideas. You have to rely on your friends and neighbors of the same accord to be able to get that advice.
And I think, I get a lot of comments all the time from people who say, I am a lone wolf. And I don't think they don't necessarily say it with the bravado of, look at me, I can do everything myself. It's just they don't have anybody else. So I think if you're in that situation, you have to prepare yourself to be humble and to take what skills you have to somebody and say, listen, I'll do this for you. Let's band together. Let me provide you with my skills and let's make this work, and be humble about it and accept that you're not going to be the top wolf, the top dog of that party or of that group, but you are going to have more people with your back than if you were by yourself.
That's true. Yep. I don't know. What's the best way?
So Jason, what can we do now to prepare for any event that comes up? We prepare for everything.
Yeah. Well, you got to train. You got to practice. And like I tell everybody, go get you a packet of seeds. Doesn't matter what kind of seeds. Get one that you're going to eat. Plant it now, because you can buy all the seed banks in the world, and you can buy all these seeds and pack them in an ammo can all nice and tight and bury it in the ground. But if you ain't never planted a seed before in your life, you're not going to guarantee that you're going to get food.
So that's a good point. You're saying test your grounds first before you.
Yeah. Well, not just your grounds, but your own skill level, your own, because gardening, you got to have patience.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to be able to recognize certain things. You can't, you got to be able to go out, like when you go out and look at your tomato plants, and all of a sudden you got this, what it looks like a white vein coming down the side of your tomato plant. But when you touch it, it moves. Well, those are aphids. Well, how are you going to get rid of aphids? If you've never gardened before, what are you going to do? And aphids can kill a tomato plant.
That's right.
And then they can jump to another plant. Same way with squash beetles and cucumber beetles, all these different pests that are out there. It's not like when the crap hits the fan and you reached into your seed bank and you planted all your seeds that you can run down to the 7-Eleven or to the Home Depot and go get 7 dust.
Yeah, right.
You got to figure out how to do this stuff with what you got on hand now. And if you can figure out that, okay, maybe I just start putting back a whole bunch of dish soap so then I can use the dish soap as a pest control. Well, then you start putting back all this dish soap and you're like, there's got to be a better way. You start researching now, then you stumble across some fat guy like me that's talking about companion gardening on his YouTube channel one day. And then you start learning that if you plant basil with your tomatoes, it will help. And if you plant marigolds around your tomatoes, you won't have a problem with aphids. And you'll start learning about companion gardening and doing companion gardening. And then all of a sudden you don't need these pesticides. And then you're learning about how you're going to refeed your soil and how you're going to get that microorganism party going on in the soil. Because if you got good, healthy soil, then your plants are going to be healthy and they're going to be able to help defend themselves. And then you're going to learn about natural predators that you want to come into your garden, like the parasitic wasp and different birds that'll come in and they're going to eat all of these nasty bugs that are tearing up your vegetables, but they ain't going to be messing with your vegetables. But then you got to worry about the cute little bunny rabbit that's coming in and how he's going to be start chewing on your cantaloupe and your watermelon and your lettuce and everything like that. You got to learn how to keep him out. You don't learn all of these things in a book.
Overnight,
because
right.
If there was a book out there that could be written that covers everything, I would try to be the guy to write it. You know? But
or at least own a copy.
There is no one book that can cover all of these things because each scenario is different. Down here in good old Georgia, I battle different bugs and different problems than you do where Patrick is at, where some of my buddies do up in Virginia or up in Ohio. I've got to worry about heat and drought. So how do I go about getting my seeds that are in my seed bank? How do I know if these guys are even going to be compatible and they won't bolt on me right away? So what you got to do now is you buy them seeds, you plant those seeds, and then in your area you learn how to save seeds. Mm-hmm. You make sure you have an heirloom variety of a vegetable, and you plant those seeds. And then you take, and if you've got kids and you got a wife, this is the hardest thing on the planet to get accomplished because they see that big, fat, juicy tomato on that vine and it's just picture perfect. They want to go pick it. And you gotta put dog shock collars on every last one of them. And every time they go to reach for it, you gotta shock them. Because you gotta say, no, you can't pick that one, not this year. Because you want that tomato to ripen fully on the vine, because if that tomato doesn't fully ripen on the vine, the seeds are not mature enough. They're not ripened the seeds, and you can save those seeds, but if you didn't let it fully ripen, those seeds are not going to germinate.
Right.
So you have to let that puppy sit there on that vine, and you got to walk past it every day with drool like a Rottweiler that just swallowed a sneaker, and you got the laces hanging out. And you're looking at this tomato and you want it bad, but you got to let it stay on there till when you just touch it, it falls off into your hand and it's all squishy. Now you don't want to eat it, but you want all those seeds in there. And you do that every year. And then you will get a black Cherokee tomato that is perfect for your area. It can handle your heat. It can handle your level of moisture, whether or not you get a drought. And just because, and look, don't get in the habit of when you're growing your garden of going out there every night of the week and throwing your rotating sprinklers or your bigot sprinklers out there and watering every time. Because if the crap hits the fan, how are you going to get the water to them through those sprinklers?
That, Finger Lakes Prepper just brought that up. And before I get to what he said, we had Mike Albert say vinegar is something that you can make in your own home, and it has gardening potential. And Die Bullfrog said grow tobacco because you can use that as a natural pesticide as well.
Those are all great things. Peppermint plants are great pesticides. Tobacco,
Marigolds.
Marigold, yeah.
Marigolds, oregano, garlic, onions, all of those. And that's what makes companion planting so stinking cool. And it's not like it's a new thing. The Native Americans were doing it way back in the day. Right. They would plant they did a lot of the Four Sisters planting, which was like corn, squash, beans, and something else.
It's Three Sisters.
Three, yeah, so that's what it is.
There was a fourth one back then. We lost it.
They plant the corn. They let the corn get up about 6 to 8 inches tall, and then they go ahead and start planting climbing beans, your pole beans. And your pole beans would climb up the corn stalk. Right. Whammo. They work together.
Finger Lakes Prepper said, let me go read to do justice what he said. I would say before you start gardening, and maybe in addition to it, to make sure that you have ample water resources. You're not going to grow much without water or good soil. I think that's something that we don't discuss when we think about survival gardening is if you don't do it today, like Jason is saying, like Patrick is saying, you're not going to know how much water you're going to need. So you might have this dream of your quarter-acre garden, your 1 acre garden, but if your well goes out or if you lose access to water, how are you going to water those plants? Because you guys know those plants soak up water like nobody's business. And if it comes down to you letting your family drink or you feeding the plants water, you're always going to choose letting your family drink. Yeah. So having a plan in order, what do you guys think about adjusting or maybe like an aquaponic? Do you think that's an option if you have limited water resources?
Catch yourself a rain catchment system.
Well, you got to that's good. You can use the rain catchment system to help. And there's a new thing out that you got to go get it. I mean, you don't got to go get it like right now. Stop watching the stream and go get it. But you got to get it if you're being preparedness for your preparedness garden. It's called micro irrigation. It works great hand in hand with a rainwater catchment system. Very little pressure is needed to operate this micro irrigation system.
Okay.
And it's just a big long tube where you can punch in where you want them and be another little tube like a 1/4 inch tube, and it'll go to like a bubbler or they got little tiny micro irrigation like quote unquote soaker hoses that you can weave in and out. But there's millions of different things that you can do, like mulch. Mulch is a huge thing when it comes to gardening. Mm-hmm. If you're not mulching your garden, you're wrong. And here's why. Mulch does so many different things. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, this fat guy don't know what he's talking about. Back to Eden does not work here for me. I've tried it. Gave it everything I had. Gave it its best shot. Didn't work great for grass. Didn't do too hot for my garden. Mulch. I do a deep mulch with old, wasted hay and straw. I put that on and I put it like 4 to 6 inches deep. That stops any weed growth, but that also controls the temperature of the soil. Helps keep your plants cool. When it rains, the straw and the hay will soak it up, and then it slowly releases it back in. That works wonders. If you're going to use the micro irrigation, I tell everybody put the pipes underneath your mulch because those pipes are black. You don't want to scald your plants.
Right.
But if you also go ahead and start now, and you start saving your seeds, like how I was saying, for your area, and you don't water these every single day and pamper them. You know, like right now, I don't know if you guys can hear it. I'm getting rain. So I'm not going to water my garden now for another couple days because I want these plants to not to be dependent upon me for water. And the strongest ones that come out, those are the seeds I'm going to save. So that way next year, if I get 100 seeds out of this one beautiful tomato, and I get 50 of those seeds to germinate.
Right.
Okay. Then I pick the strongest plant from those 50 for the following year to save the seeds. And I do that every year. You know, within 3 or 4 years, you're going to be like, which one's the strongest one? You know? And so then you just blindly kind of, I won't say blindly, but you start looking at different things. Which one doesn't have any fungus? Which one is more resistant with the pests? And then you can start narrowing it down until you get the perfect plant for your area. That's not something that you can do by grabbing a bunch of seeds and sticking them in an ammo can and burying them in the ground. You gotta, you know, and if you've never done any gardening, you'll never be able to do what we're saying, because this takes years, seasons. I shouldn't say years, but seasons of you out there in your garden learning different things. Because I can tell you all day long, look, leave the wood chips for driveways and walk paths.
Right.
Now, I want to include on that, if you've never gardened before and you need help on getting stuff started, that's why we're here. We're here to help you. We're reaching out to you guys. So, I mean, we want to help. That's part of what we're doing here. I mean, we're not going to come out to your property, but we'll give you the advice you need. Another thing you could do, go to your local community college. Almost every community college has some sort of gardening program that you can sit and watch and learn about how plants work.
Or talk to your county extension agent. They put on master gardening classes, at least down here. They do all the time.
Now, Donna had said something in the chat where she said her grandmother told her to leave the rocks in the garden because they will help retain the water. Yes, that's true. Of course, don't leave them where you're going to be planting, but leave them in and around because they are going to retain the water underneath. You lift up a rock, you've got wet soil under there. That's just the way it happens. But that brings me to a point of learning from our grandparents and our grandparents' grandparents. We have to, I think, look back at how gardens were grown in the Great Depression, how people got together and entire communities. I was lucky enough to have my great aunt still alive just until a couple of years ago, less than 10 years ago. And I just picked her brain for information. She would tell me all about her Great Depression garden, how sometimes they would have women from the neighborhood come and steal from their garden. But if it was just one woman, her father would let them get away with it. And he would go out there and he would give them some things. But if it was a family, I'm sorry, not a family, if it was a man and a woman, it was a whole different story. Because now that man who should have been providing for his wife was stealing from their family and making it harder for them to eat. So take that into consideration too. Learn what your grandparents and great-grandparents did and how we can implement that today.
You know, I inherited like 2 or 3 cookbooks from my nanny when Papa finally, when he passed. And they were Great Depression era cookbooks. And they had different recipes and stuff that had to do with dandelions and different things like that. But they also had stories in there. And anybody that lived through the Great Depression and they had a garden, they always, everybody probably did the same thing. My grandfather taught me, because he lived through it. He said, when you're planting a garden, whatever you're planting, you plant how many rows you need, and then you plant that extra row for somebody else.
That's right.
It's
Yeah, that's a
garden. Yeah.
I mean,
I got a garden just for yourself. How many people grow gardens that you know have never given you any produce from it?
Exactly. Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, I think that's a great thing to talk about. I think that's a great kind of mission statement and message to everybody. It's something, and let me kind of tell you what happened here this last couple of weeks. I put out a video. I don't remember on what channel it was. Might have been Off Grid with Brad and Kelly. It was the one about the where we had our stovepipe kept leaking, and it was a fail. And I told everybody it was a fail. And I had a viewer berate me, sent me just message after message on how you should never tell people how you fail. You should never tell people when you make a mistake. That is absolutely wrong. Yeah. I moved here to Alabama from Florida, and the soil here is so much different. I'm on a learning curve every single day to keep these plants going. And if you have a retreat where you're thinking about growing a garden, a survival garden at, or if you're just moving to an area, moving to a homestead, is going to be a whole different world than where you were at before. So keep that in mind, and don't be afraid to reach out to locals and say, what grows good in this soil without very much reparation?
Yeah, because like for an example, I mean, you moved from Florida to Alabama. That's a pretty drastic move. So there's it's not unthinkable to think that the growing conditions are different.
Right.
I moved just an hour and a half. I went from my one homestead to my forever homestead. They're only an hour and a half apart. Back to Eden style gardening in my first homestead was starting to work. I had a lot more sandy soil there. It started working halfway decent. I came up here. I finally this year said, you know what? I'm done with it. I'm not doing it. It's just not working. I've got more of a rocky, junk, nasty, I want to punch somebody in the face soil. You know, and it's funny, but we took an area where we knew we were going to be the garden, We put the pigs on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's smart. No.
We kept them on there for like a season and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Pulled the pigs off, started throwing compost and piling the wood chips on. My first garden in there, I think I got like 1 ear of corn and 1 tomato. Mm-hmm. Now, if we were in a crap hit the fan scenario and I just pulled these seeds out of my ammo can, I'm hosed. Because now what am I going to do? Am I going to eat the corn that's on the cob? Or am I going to say, sorry, honey, sorry, kids, you can't eat because I'm going to save this whole ear and then we're just going to grow this much more corn next year.
Right.
Well, lucky for you, I got that answer for you.
And that's actually what we need, because Legendary Bushcraft said what we need to hear next. Thank you for all the great info. Would like to hear more from Patrick.
Well, before we get started, I wanted to ask the guys if they were talking about that knife challenge or not. What is the knife challenge, and should we do it?
So Jason over at Big Bear Homestead, he was supposed to put out a video on a 3-knife challenge.
Y'all gonna kick me under the bus.
Look, those two.
Look, it's coming out tomorrow. It's coming out tomorrow. Look, my son started a new job. He's my cameraman, and all last week I got called into work with the post office.
No, we understand. So, look for a knife challenge from all 3 of our channels.
It's coming out tomorrow. I'm tagging Full Spectrum, Brad, and I'm tagging
Breakaway.
A&L Forge. No, Brad's tagging you.
Yeah, I'm tagging you.
And I'm tagging Old Ways, New Times. And the thing with the knife challenge, Irish Family Homestead tagged me. They're probably not even talking to me anymore because like 2 weeks ago they tagged me. And it's your oldest knife, your everyday carry,
right,
and your favorite knife. You talk a little bit about them, and then you kick it off. Mine will be coming out tomorrow. I'm filming it first thing in the morning because my son doesn't have to work, and I'm editing it, and I will have it out by 1500.
Okay, we will eagerly await it. Now, Patrick, back to you.
Both of you.
I'm just busting your chops, man. I just thought maybe you'd. It was Tuesday. I think it was Tuesday. We're like, are you putting this video out or what? All right. So I'm here, and I want to thank Brad and want to thank Jason for having me on as well. I'm not a big channel, and but I've known these folks here for at least a couple of years now, on a first name basis, and have been watching them for a very long time. And again, I'm a Patreon to Full Spectrum Survival, and I will promote him right now.
Appreciate it.
Survival cards. Get your survival cards. On Patreon, if you give them at least $10 a month, you get these survival cards. I think it's 5 or 6. I can't remember what it is.
Yep,
and you can see here, they're laminated, beautiful pictures, and on the back, they give you survival information. And these are no joke. These are great gifts for other people and everything like that. And if you can't go for the $10 pledge, you can go for a $1 pledge and get the electronic digital copy of these as well. And plus, you also get access to great behind-the-scenes information and get to talk to other folks of a like mind. So that plug's done.
Hey,
Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Patrick.
So what I'm here to talk about, what's up?
You got some stuff right here on your
Little stuff on my nose right here. What I said I was going to talk to you tonight when we got together and got notes together and everything like that was one, what Jason was going to do, what we could do now, and then I was going to talk about what we can do to prepare for the future, and that is food storage, obviously, and that's what we usually do for preparedness. And there's a phase stuck in between a prepper and somebody who is smart. You know, back in the day, there's no such thing as prepper. We were all preppers at one point. And one thing we had was a large pantry filled with food in case any emergency came up. And it's crazy the way things are these days and the viewpoints they have on people who actually prepare and have insurance for themselves for their family in case something does happen. And stuff happens every day. The list is this long on anything, any particular thing that can happen that can cause you to need any supplies or anything like that. So tonight, what I'm going to be talking about is food storage and food storage at home and food storage outside the home, because there is 50-50 chance. I think there's a 60% chance when shit hits the fan. Excuse my language if that's the case, but when the shit hits the fan, there's a 60% chance that you'll be at home. There's a 40% chance you're going to be outside the home. So what you got to do is figure out what you're going to do outside the home to get to home, and how to sustain yourself when that happens. So let's get down to the very basics of what food storage is and what people use. So anyone who is in a preparedness mind or researches food storage has heard the term of a Mylar bag. And I think a lot of people don't actually, and this is going down to the very basics, people don't actually know what Mylar is. People know space blankets, everything like that. They have reference to go to, but they don't have an explanation of what Mylar is. So we're going to start off with Mylar, and this is what Mylar looks like. It's silver. It's not a plastic. It's more of a film. So along with that, Mylar's trade name is the trade name used for what's actually called Bopec, and this is what it's called, Bopec. Bopec film, and it stands for biaxially oriented polyethylene terephthalate. Here you go, terephthalate. Say that 5 times fast. This film was developed by DuPont in 1955, and its original use was for film and 35 millimeter cameras and other film types. If you open up any old film, it's actually Mylar film. Again, it was picked up first by the Kodak film industry, and NASA quickly adapted its use to the space program by creating the reflective film blankets, or the space blankets, aka the space blankets, and quickly adapted it for other use. And their main use now for NASA, other than space blankets, is food storage. And so it's finally come around to us to where we can use Mylar on a daily basis.
Inexpensively, yeah, right.
What's up?
It used to be too expensive. We didn't have access to it.
Too expensive. Now it's not. It's readily available for us because mass production has caused it to be a cheaper product. Kind of like what's going on with solar panels. They're getting cheaper by the day because more and more people are producing it. So since Mylar's been well liked due to its high tensile strength and barrier properties for such a thin film, and that was the point behind it. It was something small or thin that is supposed to be very strong and resistant because of the way it's built. I don't know if you guys remember the 3x5 floppy disks, the little square plastic ones. The discs themselves had Mylar film on the inside, and that's what the memory was placed upon. Have you ever tried to take one of those and try to rip it apart, and it never worked?
I don't.
Yeah, I have. I used to destroy stuff all the time. So this stuff practically used in anything and everything these days, including building insulation, musical instruments such as drum heads. All the drum heads these days are all now Mylar film. greenhouse light reflectors, and the list goes on what Mylar does for us on a day-to-day process. So getting back on topic, we're discussing specifically Mylar food storage bags. And I dropped it down here. Let me pick that up here real quick. The two most common size Mylar food bags for storage bags for food are the 1 gallon size and the 5 gallon size. The 1 gallon size is a 10 by 14 inch bag, and the 5 gallon is usually a 20 to 30 inch bag. And there's many variations in sizes between that, but this is what you're going to want to start out with if you've never done food storage before. Probably the easiest and the quickest way to get food storage is to use these 5 gallon bags.
Now, somebody real quick,
go ahead.
Over in the chat, he said the ceiling iron is expensive. It's not. You can get, and if you're doing a lot of them, you can get them as low as $29 on Amazon.
Yeah, that's a lot cheaper than what it used to be back in the day. Even 20 years ago, I want to say 20 years ago, back in the year 2000. In the year 2000. Mylar was the #1 selling product on the market there for a while because everybody thought the world was going to end, but it didn't. So these are food grade Mylar bags. So the best thing about the 5 gallon bag is you want to use it with a 5 gallon bucket. And I got my 5 gallon bucket over here on my side here, and I'll switch cameras here in a minute to be able to show you exactly how to use a Mylar bag and how to seal a bag. So when you buy Mylar, you want it to be at least 4.5 mil or more on the thickness of the bag. The stronger the weave of the polyester, which is inside this bag, gives it more stencil strength. Tensile strength? There you go.
Tensile strength.
Tensile strength. And so the thicker the bag, just like any greenhouse, the thicker the plastic, the longer it's going to last, and the better it's going to be. So I'm going to go ahead and switch cameras here, and actually, I'll just pull it over here real quick.
Okay.
So here I got a 5 gallon bucket.
Cheap.
And a 5 gallon Mylar bag, and I'll be filling this bucket. I've actually already started filling this bucket with 35 pounds of rice. A 5 gallon bucket with its bag can hold 35 gallons of rice. So once you put the rice in there, or any other foods that you want to put in there, you want to make sure they're shelf stable, and that you have an oxygen absorber before you seal this bag and put it up. And we're going to do that here in just a quick second. But before we seal it, we want to talk about oxygen absorbers. So if anybody's seen these before, there's two different types. There's an oxygen absorber and there's a desiccant. Do not go for the desiccant. A desiccant only protects you from moisture. It does not protect from oxygen. And so an oxygen absorber does exactly that. It absorbs the oxygen. It's a small package of iron powder, and it has an outer wrapper that allows oxygen and moisture to come into the package but not out. It's basically a one-way valve for moisture and for oxygen. The iron powder on the inside of the oxygen absorber creates an iron oxide. What it does is basically rusts inside the package, sucking up that oxygen, and the byproduct of that absorption is nitrogen. And so one of the things people say about Mylar bags that I see a lot on YouTube for people talking about Mylar bags is, oh, you have to have a vacuum sealer to do everything when you're using Mylar bags on top of the oxygen absorber, because you want all the oxygen out before you put the oxygen absorber in there, so it'll seal and it'll be airtight. That's totally negative. It takes the oxygen and turns it into nitrogen, and it turns it into less nitrogen than oxygen inside that bag. I'll give you an example. And I'm going to go pull this up here real quick.
And that brings up a good point for anyone who's wanting to store their medicine in the long term. Make sure you use oxygen absorbers, because it's the oxygen that degrades the medication over time.
Okay, so I I pulled out a bucket that I had stored underneath my bed because I have a bed frame made for buckets underneath the bed. There's a quick tip for preparedness. A king size bed. If you make a king size bed high enough, will hold 36 buckets underneath it. That's a lot of food. But I pulled one of those buckets out, and I actually pulled one of the last bags of rice that I sealed up, and it looks like this. Looks like it's vacuum sealed, right? Because it is. There's no oxygen inside this. And so those people who keep telling you that you need a vacuum sealer to seal Mylar along with the oxygen absorbers, it's a totally negative, not real thing. That thing's heavy too. So,
hey Patrick, I've got a question for you, but I'm getting some feedback on your audio.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Do you have your earbuds still or not?
No, I don't have my earbuds in.
Okay. Let me see if I can do anything with the feedback here. Okay, it seems to have gotten better. So you have the rice in a bucket.
Yes.
And how many pounds? You said 35 pounds, right?
35 pounds of rice.
Now, I forget the exact equation, but I remember a 5-gallon bucket will hold around 20,000 calories worth of rice.
You are correct. A 35-pound bucket of rice, it's 591 calories per pound, 206 calories per cup, and 20,685 calories per bucket.
So guys, a 5-gallon bucket of rice, 20,000 calories. Your family will be fed, and it is very cheap. There is no excuse not to have that.
So the average cost, when I did the averaging on this, I'm not a big store fan, but where I do get my rice, it goes in 20-pound bags, and so I get most of those 2 bags inside there. It costs me about $9. And so with the 250 so all in all, when you do this food storage, you may be spending maybe $15, maybe $16 on the entire thing with a Mylar bag, because if you buy in bulk, you'll get a cheaper price.
Yeah, but what does it come out to, including the Mylar bag?
What do you mean?
What is your price per bucket? You figure how much?
Well, if you buy bulk and Mylar bags, you're only going to be spending about $3 per bag.
Sometimes even cheaper.
Yeah. So that is everything. You'll spend between $10 and $15. 15 would probably be the max. Along with buying the bucket, which can vary wherever you're at, between $2.50 and $5. So you're not going to spend any more than $20. How about that?
Now, if you have a Firehouse subs around you, you can buy their buckets that the pickles come in for like $1. And what they do is they'll sell them to you, and that dollar's supposed to go help buy firefighters better equipment and blah blah blah. But that's a food grade bucket right there, blam. And they give you the lid also. You just go home, wash it out. It'll still kind of have that vinegary smell, but if you're putting your stuff in a Mylar bag, you don't worry about it.
Another great place to get buckets as well is at any bakery. A lot of bakery stuff comes in buckets. They usually go between 5 and 7 gallons, 7-gallon buckets that you can get. All you have to do is ask for them. Asking may seem crazy, and they may think you're crazy. Like when I go get a haircut, I'll say, "Hey, can I get a bag of clippings from all the hair?" Because human hair, actually has the highest content of nutrients for plants when it decomposes. Highest nitrogen rating.
How do you expedite the decomposition?
You continuously water it. You mix it with dirt and continuously water it until it breaks down. It does take some time, but yeah, for anything like that, it is the highest nitrogen item that you can get. That's natural out there.
Nice.
But I'm going to go ahead and continue to talk about these oxygen absorbers here real quick, about what you want when you're storing your food. So the rule of thumb is to have 300 cc oxygen absorbers for each gallon of product. So if you want to use this for a 5-gallon bucket, you want to use a 2,000 cc absorber and it'll be more than what's enough for it, but it'll overcompensate and suck it in just like we just saw it to get the job done. Another thing you could do is, instead of just buying really big oxygen absorbers, you could buy a whole bunch of small ones. But when you buy your oxygen absorbers, plan to use them within a year, because they'll go back quickly outside of its purpose, because it's rust. It's going to rust as soon as it's exposed to oxygen. So the cheaper way to do it is to buy a whole bunch in bulk, just small ones, and go with that. Now, I got a bag here. This one's not unopened, and there's this little indicator inside there. Let's see if I can get it inside there. And it's pink. Some bags come with pink pills. Some bags come with these little bags that indicate whether it's good or not. If it's pink, it's good. If it's blue, it's not good. They're no good. Throw them out. Send them back. We'll get new ones.
Hey, Pat,
I'm sorry?
I got a question.
Yeah.
You just said that you had to use the oxygen absorbers. They had to be used within a year.
Yes.
Now, do you mean that I have to put them in with my rice within a year, or once it's in with the rice, I've got to rotate that food out within a year?
No, you want to use
there?
them when you're storing food within a year.
Okay.
So,
but once they're in there with the food, how long are they good for?
Forever, because it will. As long as you have it sealed, it will
once
take
it's
all the
sealed
oxygen
inside its
out.
bag, it's already sucked up all the oxygen. It's gone to a point. So I'll give you an example. I said 2,000 cc's of iron oxide for that 5-gallon bucket. It only needs 1,500 cc's for that 5-gallon bucket. The rust is gonna expand to a point where there's still iron oxide in there. So if any oxygen gets in, it's going to continue on. But it's sucked out all the oxygen inside that bag. So there's no way any oxygen is going to get to it unless the bag is punctured. And so it's good indefinitely until you open that bag.
Mm-hmm.
That answer your question?
Mm-hmm. I was just asking for somebody. So.
No, Tim, you can't dry out oxygen absorbers. Once they have absorbed the oxygen, that's it. They're done.
Yeah. A cheap oxygen absorber, hand warmers. That's exactly what it is iron oxide. They're in a thinner package that have more a porous surface on it, so it emits heat. These will emit heat too. If you take one out, if you get a whole bunch, take one out, let it absorb oxygen. Just feel it, and you'll feel it's emitting heat, just like a hand warmer. You can use a hand warmer as an oxygen absorber. All you need to do is figure out how much iron powder is inside that hand warmer to figure out how much you can use for that hand warmer.
I think he was thinking about desiccants or moisture absorbers, and yes, you should be able to dry those out.
Yeah. If you put both of them in there, that's not a bad idea either. But all right, so showed you the indicator. Now we're going to go ahead and do one real quick. Do we have time? How are we doing on time?
Go ahead.
Okay. We're going to seal one bag here real quick, and I'm going to switch cameras. It may take like 10 seconds.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, so while he's doing that, he's going to show us actual sealing. Please, guys, learn from this so that you know what to do. And go out and practice this just like you're putting seeds in the ground. Get the Mylar bag, get the 5-gallon bucket, and seal up some rice.
Yeah, because everything that you're preparing for in any way, shape, or form, you have to practice. Whether you're putting seeds in the ground, practicing putting food away, because if we're in a SHTF situation and you've harvested a lot of food and you are able to dehydrate some of your vegetables, where are you going to put them? You want to put them in something like this, so you got to practice these things. The same way with practicing trapping or hunting or fishing or anything like that. Is he ready yet?
I'm ready.
Okay, go.
You guys can see my bag here. Are we good?
Yep, we're good.
Fantastic. So I got the bag here. You can see I've already got rice inside of it, but I don't have enough rice to fill it up all the way to the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find something in my house that can replace the space to make it full all the way to the top. Guess what I happen to have handy? Pinto beans. So I'm going to mix these both. I'm going to add that inside there. It's going to add some more protein to the diet, if in case I ever have to open it. And I might have to separate them out, but I'll deal with that at that time. But I know for a fact that once I seal this, it'll be good to go, and I'll have food for the future in case something happens. I'm going to open this up, fill this bag up all the way to the top. Not all the way to the top, but I want it to be about 3 inches from the brim of the bucket. It's like getting beans everywhere. That's actually just about right.
Yep.
So you can see the brim of the bucket right here. You can see it's right close to the brim. It's about 2.5 to 3 inches down. And that's the perfect point. So there's 2 ways to seal a bag. Well, there's actually 1 way to seal a bag. And the only way to seal a bag is with heat. It binds the polyurethane together and creates a watertight and airtight vapor barrier. So what you're going to want to do is you take your bag. First, take your oxygen absorber out. Pop one of those in there. And don't start with your oxygen absorber open first. Use common sense and do it last. I'm just now taking the oxygen absorber out of the sealed bag and putting it in. So what we're going to want is a flat surface to be able to bind this together. And I've got an ironing board right behind it. The best way to do this, and I don't have one, I need to get one, is to use a hair straightener. So if you got a wife with a hair straightener, you're golden. If you don't, consider getting one. I don't have one. So this is the way I do it. I got the small ironing board. I just lay it over just like this. Make sure it's nice and flat as I can get it. You don't want any bumps or anything like that. And you're going to iron the surface. And you'll know when it seals. You'll see it seal. And then right before you get to the edge, to where you're about to seal the bag off, you're going to want to punch out as much air as possible. That way your oxygen absorber doesn't have to do all the work. All right, I'm sealing the bag now.
Now, for anyone watching, how are you going to know it's sealed?
How do you know it's sealed? I'll show you. So it'll take the look of aluminum foil. You know how you crimp up aluminum foil? It'll look like aluminum foil when it's sealed. And I'll show you what I mean. When both of them are bonded together, the actual metal inside the bag seals together, so that makes it more rigid. So the top is going to be more rigid, and it's going to have these rigidity like aluminum foil. And you can see how it sticks by itself, but before it was just wiggly.
Yeah, right.
But if I crimp the top of this, it stays in place. That's how you know the bag is sealed. Next, you're going to fold it in on itself. No particular way. You just want it below the top of the bucket. And then you're going to seal your bucket by putting the lid on top.
Now, guys, if you have your food storage, a lot of people tell me they have their food storage in totes, like those totes that you get from Walmart, the $5 totes. The problem is that plastic degrades over time like nobody's business. You might try to pick that up when you really need it, especially if it's in a room where it has gotten some UV, and it's just going to snap apart on you, and now you've got a 150-pound backpack that's going to hurt you. Whereas a 5-gallon bag like these, we've all picked up paint cans before. Those cans are made to hold the weight. So please use 5-gallon buckets if it's possible and feasible for what you're prepping.
So I'm waiting for my camera to come back onto me. Take a second here.
Sure.
Does anybody have any questions or anything about sealing bags or anything like that? What I wanted to do is give you guys the resource, the very base of what food storage is. I just saved my family's life for 10 days.
That's right. Or even longer. Yeah.
Exactly what I just did. and it didn't take but 5 minutes.
And a couple of dollars.
So exactly. So what you do is anytime you go grocery shopping, I go grocery shopping twice a week, or not twice a week, twice a month, every other week, because I hate going out to Walmart. I hate Walmart. I hate the people. I hate everything like that. I just cannot stand the way people are. It's like watching somebody have their lawn sprinklers go off when it's raining outside. It's pointless.
Oh, that drives me crazy.
And so, yeah. Well, next time you go grocery shopping, pick up a bag. It's just that simple. Pick up a 20-pound bag, put it in the bottom of your cart. Every single time. You can do that twice a month, or every time you go shopping. Just pick up a bag. It may be a little pinch on your budget, but that's going to save the life of your family, your friends, and anybody else you may want to help out in that particular situation.
George Hayduke, he says, I clean and sterilize food grade buckets. I don't use Mylar, and I'm still eating out of them after a number of years. Yes, absolutely, you can. I have, when we go to the store, when we take from our food prep and we cycle that into our month's food, like with rice and like with other carbohydrates, we just keep them in food grade buckets. We take them out of the Mylar and just put them in a food grade bucket, and then we put that into the daily use. But the problem is, Patrick's setup right there, his whole food storage could get wet. He could have a flood. He could have any number of things happen. He could be subjected to dangerous air conditions. Hurricanes, anything can happen, and his food is still safe. Whereas if that air passes that lid and gets into your food and it had chemical weapons on it, biological hazards, or bugs, or it just gets wet, then it's ruined. So please think about switching over to Mylar if it's feasible for you.
And the thing about it is, it's a double barrier system. 3 is 1, 3 is 2, 2 is 1, 1 is none. When you have 2 barriers, you're up against everything, and it'll sustain itself and won't be penetrable by mice or anything like that, unless they're really determined mice.
Hey, Patrick and Jason, I'm going to give you the floor for a second. I'll be right back.
Okay. Got anything to add on food storage or anything like that, or Jason? What do you guys do for food storage?
I don't really use that many Mylar bags because when we first started, I guess it was because the Mylar bags were so expensive back then. We dehydrate a lot of stuff here on the homestead. Yeah. And so we're either putting it like tomatoes, for example. I learned from Always New Times to dehydrate my tomatoes into a powder. And then I could store that powder in a mason jar. And then you get a couple of quarts of these tomatoes that have been grinded up in the powder in mason jars. Then you just need to take out X amount of scoops to be able to make the ketchup or the spaghetti sauce and stuff like that. So we use a lot of mason jars, and we're constantly rotating those things out because we're always growing. So a lot of ours is in mason jars. Now, a lot of our flours, rice, stuff like that, they're in vacuum sealed bags, in 5-gallon buckets up underneath the house or up in the attic, and with the oxygen absorber inside the bucket. But we're probably, after hearing what you quoted with the price with those bags, they must have went way down.
They've come way down.
And we're probably going to switch.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you.
Hey guys, real quick, if anybody watching is going to go to Amazon, I know Jason has an Amazon affiliate link set up. Patrick, do you have one as well?
I do, but I don't have it set up yet. I mean, I haven't used it. I'm still setting up my process, still getting my website up to date and everything like that.
Okay, please go use Jason's until Patrick gets one set up. Click on his Amazon link. Go buy your Mylar bags if you've learned from him today. If he has talked about something that really got you motivated, or Patrick got you motivated to get started on your preps.
And I got one more thing to go over, and then I'm going to go through it as fast as I can.
Sure, yeah, no problem.
So we talked about preps for the house, and switch back the camera right here. We talked about preps for the house. What we need to talk about now is preps for outside the house, outside the home. The one thing that's going to be your go-to is, of course, your vehicle. And the best thing to do for your vehicle, okay, so an SHTF situation, how many, if you're walking to your house, how many calories should you be eating above your normal daily intake to replenish your body and keep your body fueled to get to that house? What would you say? About 3,000 calories?
I would go 30% above daily.
Yeah, 30%. Depends on the distance that you're walking too, and what does your get home bag weigh?
Yeah, if you're gonna ruck 15 miles a day, well, you're gonna need to almost double your calorie intake.
Exactly.
And your standard, and if you got MREs in your bag, your standard MRE is what, 3,500 calories?
Yeah.
Not so much there, Jason.
Oh, it used to be.
No, he ate 2 of them, so.
No, it's not 3,500 calories.
But you can get the big. I think they sell big MREs now. They're aftermarket, not military, and they
do sell big
up.
MREs. And people think MREs last forever. They don't. Nothing lasts forever, especially if it's food that you're going to be eating soon. MREs last 5 years, and they're expensive. I mean, ridiculously expensive. So this is what I come up for myself. You don't have to follow what I've done, but here's an example of what you should do in that situation. So in my vehicles, I have one of these for every passenger seat in the car. So if it's a 4-passenger vehicle, I've got 4 in there. And I'm just going to go through this real quick. I'm going to take you a quick gander at what's in front of me right here. And everything's airtight, air sealed. What this is a vehicle MRE. That's what I call them. I'm trademarking the name, by the way. So it's a vehicle MRE. This vehicle MRE has over 3,300 calories.
Nice.
It's not that much bigger than an MRE.
And what's the weight with and without water? Do you know?
Here's an MRE. Here's a vehicle MRE. This MRE is probably one of the most calorie-laden ones. It's the spaghetti with beef sauce, one of my favorites. And it's only got about 1,600 calories in it. That's everything that's inside this bag. It comes with Skittles. It comes with crackers and cheese and all this stuff. The max, the total number of calories on that bag was about 1,600 calories.
This is 30. I thought there were at least 2.
Well, you're supposed to be eating 2 a day, so 2 a day if in normal operation, right?
Right. Out in the field, you eat 2 a day. Usually breakfast and dinner.
Right.
So what this is, I've got one of these in the vehicle for each passenger. So in my 4-passenger car, I've got 4 of these inside there. I'm just gonna go through the contents real quick.
Please do.
Show you exactly what I got and why I have it in there. I'm actually opening this one up. This is more of an example because my my sealer is actually dying and I couldn't get the seal all the way, and I don't want to ruin the ones I have in my vehicles.
Sure.
First thing, 3 bottles of water. This is Crystal Geyser. This is spring water. I don't drink fake water. I don't drink water that's been what do you call it?
Treated.
Yeah, because it's bad for you. It's really bad for you. I don't want to go into that, but yeah. So there's 3 of these. And the reason why we have 3 of these is because you have 3 meals in this bag. So for each one, you have 3 bottles. Once you use these bottles, you're going to continue to reuse them. Everything is reusable. Jason from Big Bear will tell you anything that you have can be reused at least once or twice in a different way or another. So the reason why you're going to keep those bags is because inside here, my knife, where'd it go? Inside here, and inside every bag, there's an eyedropper. You get these off of Amazon real cheap. Eyedropper. Guess what's inside the eyedropper?
Iodine.
Nope.
Bleach. Yep.
It's bleach. Yep. It's bleach. And so for every one of these, so it's 2 drops of bleach for every liter of water. One of these is half a liter. So it'd be 1 drop per bottle of water. You let it sit for 30 minutes, you got drinkable water.
Have you done a test to see about how many drips you're going to get out of that?
I'm sorry?
Do you know about how many water
usually we
refills?
get out of that? I would say This is a 15 milliliter bottle. I don't know how
Probably
many drops you get out of that, but
30
that's
bottles
quite a
maybe?
lot. I think you get home by that point.
Yeah, you hope so.
Next thing, matches. And you can see here, these are all watertight, water sealed matches. You're gonna have a problem with this once you open it up. It could get wet. That's not a problem because inside the bag we have a resealable bag. So I'm gonna move on to the food here inside here, and what's inside here are three things. This is a complete. This is a Hormel complete. It is what is the name of it?
Beef stew, probably.
No, it's not beef stew. Chicken Alfredo.
Okay.
The chicken Alfredo is the largest calorie counting complete meal there is, above beef stew, above everything else. This one container that's already cooked, it's ready to go. You don't have to eat it. You just eat it and go. 440 calories. That's a lot of calories for one little thing. Next up, you got your trail mix. And that adds up along with a Cliff Bar to roughly, I lost my fact sheet here on what it is, but the total count when you add these three meals together is a little over 3,300 calories.
So it's got to be around 1,100 calories per meal.
Right, per meal, per section. And one thing I also pack, and some people have some objections to this, but in each package there are 6 cigarettes in 2-pack packs. This is good for one of two things: buttering, and to get you down off it'll help you, regulate, and it'll help you. There are so many uses. Okay, there are so many uses for cigarettes. It's not even funny. And I think maybe at one point we'll talk about the use of cigarettes. That's including getting rid of intestinal bugs and dressing wounds.
Yep.
Bug repellent, like the person was talking about before. There are literally an infinite amount of uses for this. Plus, it's a great barter tool. I don't know, I'm a little fuzzy. I'm trying to get my stuff together. But
So, real quick, I have something to say on that. We don't smoke, but we keep tobacco in our barters. And also, if you're used to 3 coffees a day, you better have some Excedrin or caffeine tabs inside of your pack as well.
Oh, yeah. There's other things you can put inside your packet as well. One thing probably be like vitamins would be a good thing. And camera's just not so good. There we go. Vitamins. And the reason why I don't put iodine in my stuff is because there's a lot of people that I've met over the course of my career that are
have a bad reaction.
Iodine. And it's a big no-no. And I'd rather not have that situation. And so that's the case. These bottles are also clear. So sun exposure will also clear out bad stuff inside the water.
What they tell people in third world countries is that if someone has no access to clay or anything else, leave your water in a safe position and in the sun for 36 hours. And after 36 hours, the amount of bacteria that was in it will be lessened by something like 64 or 65%.
Sure will. Sure will. Another thing you can use if you're in a situation like that is a terracotta clay pot. You plug the hole in the bottom and allow the terracotta clay pot to seep water out. It's just like a Sawyer filter. It'll filter out everything, and it's drinkable right then and there. Some viruses won't go through, but nowadays you can get these clay pots that have been dipped in the silver.
Colloidal silver.
Colloidal silver, and it kills everything. So I wanted to share that with you to put that idea in your head that not only are you not going to be at home, but you're going to be someplace else. You're going to have to get home, and you're going to need the energy to get home. You cover yourself, and if you're by yourself, you got 4 days worth of supplies if you need it. You can help somebody else that's on their way, and actually give charity and help other people out that way. You can get stuck in the side of the road. Just pull one of these out if you know you're going to be for a while before the tow truck gets there, and say, here's a meal. It'll help calm somebody down. There's so many attributes that go with it that make it great. Here's the one disadvantage. You know, Jason might bring this up, is the spoilage. So these last for 2 years. Those complete meals only last for 2 years. But you want to put into practice these things. And if you're not putting it into practice, then it's pointless. You're going to have MREs in your vehicles that are 10 years old before something happens, and they're not going to be edible anyway. So practice. Once that 2 years comes up, use them. Use them. Go on a hike. Use them. Act like there's an emergency. You pull what Jason does. Do an 1800s drill.
Yeah.
That's right.
It would be nothing for us to be riding down the road, and I'll pull off on the side of the road, and I'll say, okay, this is what happened. How do we get home? And we'll leave the car there, and we'll walk home. And then the next morning, we'll get up, get in our other vehicle, and come back, get the car, and go. Because if you're not doing stuff like that, when it comes time, if you're used to coming home every day, sitting down in front of the boob tube and watching TV, you're not going to be able to get out of your car and do a 10-mile hump and make it to your house in 8 hours.
It's a good idea there. Pull shock works great as well. And people don't realize that. Say you get to a situation where you have to go into a grocery store when there's nothing on the shelves, all the bleach is gone. Head to the pool section. Get shock.
Yep. Well, guys, this was great. Patrick, did you have anything else?
I'm good. No, that's me. I'm done.
Okay. Please, everybody watching, thank you so much for being here with us. Thank you for all of the great comments, all the great chat. We had a lot of great discussions outside of what we were talking about. Please go and subscribe to Patrick at Breakaway Homestead. And please go and subscribe to Jason at Big Bear Homestead. If any of the mods can put the links up there. If not, just type it into the search box. Type in Breakaway Homestead. Type in Big Bear Homestead. You're going to find them there. So much great information beyond this. And I think we were going to try and pick a date. Let's not pick it here. Let's pick it later. And we're going to try and get on each one of the channels. So I'll move over to their channel the next time that we get together and discuss some other great topics, current events, what's going on around the homestead, and how to be prepared. You guys have anything you want to add?
Thank you for this opportunity. I appreciate it.
Get out there and practice. Get out there and plant those gardens. Get out there and start to have your own chickens, and get out there and start trapping and learning about predator control. Put a get home pack in your vehicle tonight. Start
predator cards.
Yeah.
We had people in the chat room say, thank you for the information. A lot of people said, I would have never thought about that. A lot of people said, I didn't know that about the oxygen absorbers. So we brought a lot of great things to the table today, things that everybody will do to improve their chances of survival for a medium or a long duration emergency. Thank you guys all for being here.
It's great to learn. Now go do it.
That's right. Everybody, as always, from Kelly and I to you and yours, and Jason and Patrick to you and yours, stay safe and keep watch.